Hi everyone, welcome back to the Tears Take. Today I'm recapping the Real Housewives of Miami Season 7 reunions part 1 and 2. If you're new here, I recap Real Housewives and reality TV shows on a weekly basis. If you like my content, please feel free to like and subscribe. I would love to hear your thoughts along the way, so please leave a comment and I will respond. Let's go ahead and dive in. So when the reunion opens, we see the ladies are in New York and they are getting glam. Julia's in her dressing room crying because she realizes that a lot of us do not like her. And, I'm kind of like, good. I'm glad that you are seeing what the public thinks about you and it's pennant and it's permeating. So hopefully you change your behavior. Hopefully I don't have to see any change behavior and you're off the show, but if for whatever reason Andy keeps you, he seems to like you. He really likes Martina. Um, so if for whatever reason you're back for season 8, hopefully you'll move differently. But we'll talk about in a little bit how I don't think it will be any different because you have a pattern of acting how you act, and we'll get to that. But anyway, Kiki looks amazing in her blue with the straight long hair. I said yes. Alexia looks good as well. Andy was showing off with his Espanol a little bit. I said, go ahead, Andy. Lisa actually arrives to the stage on time. I said, okay, come on. Adriana tries to bring her dog as an emotional support animal and they don't let her. I was like, girl, she is a stunt queen. I can't with her. As a whole, the cast looks okay. But when you really look at them, it's very disjointed. I don't know what Stephanie was doing. I don't know. Larsa looks cheap, but whatever. As a whole, zoomed out, they look okay. All right. So Andy talks to Alexia about Todd and where she stands. She says where they stand right now, they are on zero contact. She feels like she has her power back. She's interested in dating. Okay, fine. So then they talk about the infamous water toss that just really got a lot of conversation happening. I said, okay, Andy, look at you trying to bring this up really quickly so you can kind of sweep it away. I said, So we bring up the water toss, and Alexia says that she wishes that she did do more, and Larsa starts to co-sign what Alexia is saying, but then she quickly takes up for Julia and then makes it all about herself. It was very odd, and Larsa makes the point of like, well, Adriana threw a glass at me, and we saw the flashback. It was nowhere near Larsa. It was in her very general direction, but it wasn't like it hit her. It wasn't like something splashed on her. It was nowhere near that woman. But according to Larsa, she's like, well, Adriana threw a glass at me and you did nothing. At one point, Marisol jumps in saying that there was an incident that went her way and Guerdy didn't step in. So they like that side. It's very clear that that side of the couch is in an alliance to back up Julia and to like go against Guerdy, right? And to kind of quell the support that the most of the people were kind of rallying, most of the public were rallying for Guerdy. It was kind of like, oh, hey, public, you guys are rooting for Guerdy, but let us remind you that when the tables were turned, Guerdy didn't do the same thing for us. And so, it's a fair point, but it was so like orchestrated and like it was grimy. It was just like, let's not talk about what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Let's talk about what happened this season. And this season, y'all did nothing. And it's not that y'all did nothing because of X, Y, and Z, because I feel like they would have been happy to bring that up during the show. They never said any of that. I think they were literally grasping at straws and they said, oh, let's bring this up at the reunion so that we don't look as bad. No, I think what happened is that they don't really like Guerdy like that. They don't really see her as part of the group. And they thought Julia had some entitlement or right to disrespect Guerdy. And I think that's just what it is. Okay, so as the women are kind of like bringing up all these past scenarios, Guerdy is like not defending herself well at all. She's like, oh, well, that didn't happen. Roll the tape. And then it's like, nah, girl, that did happen. Like, there was, something, I forget, I think Julia had some issue with Marisol. And yeah, you really didn't do anything. So it's like, Guerdy didn't do herself any favors with like, roll the tape production, because like production was not on her side. And then when they would bring up like other specific things, like she was kind of like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Wait, what do you mean? I fanned the flames on social media? Wait, huh? What? And it's like I don't know what her end game was. Like she mentioned that she's trying to listen more than she's talking. But as she's like trying to ask these clarifying questions, like she just looked dumb. Like if you should know what you're posting or what your team is posting. And so it's either, oh, well, yeah, I did it and here's why, or it's no, I didn't. Y'all can't read. Like it's not, wait, what are you talking about? Wait, clarify. Wait, when did I do that? Like what? Like she did that a few times. I'm like, girl, how you gonna forget your shade? So that part got on my nerves. She just did not articulate herself well in part one at all. And that really bugged me because I'm on her side, but she was very hard to defend in part one because, like I said, production didn't do her any favors, and then she just wasn't expressing herself well. So there really wasn't any resolution. Guerdy was like yapping a lot. She wasn't landing the plane. And as much as I cannot stand Julia, and as much as I think she was full of BS, she was expressing herself and her BS more clearly so that it did look like, oh, she's so sorry. Oh, she's so remorseful. And she came off, to someone who may not have seen the show, she came off looking better than Guerdy in that instance. And I'm just being real. So then they talk about, Guerdy did bring up that there were past incidents of Julia like flipping out and having like these rage issues. And so we see unseen footage of Dr. Nicole's Mamacita lunch of Julia like breaking a chair. She's yelling, she's screaming, she's like holding her head. She looks crazy. I was like, okay, so production has been clearly protecting this woman, felt the need to display her disrespect of the Black woman. Everyone else kind of got protected in all her other like rage incidents. And I was just like, can we get rid of her? Because let that have been anyone else, it would have been like, get that thug off my screen. So I'm going to say that about Julia. Get that thug off my screen. I don't want to see her. I don't feel safe with her. I feel like she's really aggressive. I feel like she's really abrasive. I think she's too much. Hey, Alexia, Marisol, when you guys are talking about someone who's too much and too loud and too extra, yeah, look at your friend Julia, okay? She's the one breaking things, having these flip out moments. She's unhinged. She's a weirdo. So why don't y'all direct that energy to her, okay? Let's try that. Anyway, so they turn and talk about Stephanie, and Stephanie says she's proud of her wealth because the common viewer perception of her was like she flaunts her wealth too much. So Stephanie says, she worked hard. She's proud of it. She says she needs to work on her tone in her personal relationships because she works in an industry where it's very male dominated and you have to kind of stick up for yourself. You need to be stern. You need to be assertive. And she kind of carries that over in her personal relationships, and it doesn't, it rubs people the wrong way sometimes. This part was annoying because as she's talking, Guerdy kept having these ad libs like, yeah, exactly, me too. Oh yeah, ow, I can relate. And I was just like, Guerdy, shut up. You had your moment, you fumbled it, so now it's Stephanie's package, it's Stephanie's moment, and like let her get her answers out, right? That part annoyed the crap out of me. But anyways, so apparently there's some rumor that Stephanie met Masood while she was working for Masood's wife. She debunks that, saying that they were separated for years before she even met him, and she never met his wife. They recently ran into each other, but they didn't speak because she never met her and didn't have a reason to talk to her. And there's really like not a lot of progress with her sisters. I think she has one sister that she is I think she might have said this in the after show. There's one sister that she's um, making a little progress with, and it's very kind of conversational about like their dogs or something like that. But other than that, it's not fully back on track. And then the other sister, she just hasn't heard from at all. But they turn to talk to Lisa. Lisa's in therapy. She's working on time management. She feels like she's more calm. She's more centered. She's still talking about getting engaged to Jody. And Andy brings up a post that Martina posted saying that surrogacy was wrong and wanted Lisa's opinion about that because both of her children were born from a surrogate. And Lisa said that she was disgusted and she's really surprised that Martina didn't retract it. And I'm like, honey, she didn't retract it because that's how she felt. And then here goes Julia just trying to take up for her, like, oh, well, she took it down. And Guerdy was like, girl, that's not a retraction, But like I said, like, hey, show everyone that you're a terrible person. Like, why do you care how anyone is born? You have a lot of time on your hand if you care. Oh, you adopted kids. Like, can someone say that that's wrong? They're not biologically yours. And quite frankly, you need to give them back. But on the topic of surrogacy, yeah, who are you to sit here and talk about how someone family plans? Get the hell out of my face. Julia tries to backpedal and she tries to distance herself, like, oh, well, I don't agree with her. And I'm like, girl, bye. So they're just an overall disgusting couple, and I feel so bad for those boys. Anyway, so then we get to Julia and Adriana, and Julia says Adriana was never in the running to be a godmother for the boys. And when asked like when their relationship changed, Adriana said when Marisol came in the picture, that's when Julia switched up. Julia says, well, I just want to give some clarity on the situation, and it's going to help you guys understand things a little bit better. 4 years ago on the cash trip to the Hamptons, Adriana and I slept together. So that was the big bomb. Everyone is gagged at the end. Everyone's like, so that was the end of part 1. Let's go ahead and get ready for part 2. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts of part 1. Let's go ahead and dive into part 2 of the Real Housewives of Miami season 7 reunion. Okay, so we pick up where we left off with Julia dropping the bomb of saying her and Adriana slept together 4 years ago in the Hamptons. Now, mind you, Julia was married 4 years ago to Martina, okay? Adriana was single. Julia was very much married, okay? So why are you broadcasting this? Let's talk about it. So basically, Julia says they slept together. Adriana laughs it off. Julia says that she told Martina 6 months ago. I said, I'm sorry, what? The math is not mathing, honey bunny. So you slept with someone outside of your marriage 3 years ago, and you told your wife 6 months ago? Yeah, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. Because how are you going to hook up with somebody without my knowledge and then bring that person around me, smiling up in my face, up in my house, around my kids? No, we gonna have a problem. Martina should have a very big problem with you. Anyway, so Andy asked Julia why she brought it up, and this is version 1 of the reason why. She says, oh, I was muzzled by Adriana. I just wanted to tell my truth. She was blackmailing me. She held it over my head. At any given time, she wanted to break the fourth wall and tell everyone. So that was version 1. We'll get to version 2 of the reason a little later. So Julia claims, at the time that this hookup allegedly happened, her and Martina were not in a good place in their marriage. She was in a very vulnerable state, and Adriana knew that, and she took advantage of her. And I'm just like, you cheat on your partner, your wife, and I'm wrong? Get away from me with this. I cannot. So Andy tries to clarify what exactly happened between the two of them, and Adriana says that they only kissed. Then Adriana goes on a tangent, revealing that Julia, that her real name is Yulia, and she's just an imposter. She's a fake. She's a fraud. Andy asked the group who believes that the hookup happened. Most of them believe it. And I believe that something did happen. I believe Adriana's version pretty much. Adriana said, okay, well, since you want to bring that up, let's put it all on the table. And so she calls out that Julia also had an affair with with a Haitian with a Haitian mortician, and Andy's face was like, and then at some point she was booking hotels to sleep with him, had to buy him a coffee maker, whatever. And then she also had an affair with a cop. And Julia is gagged, honey. Okay, she is like, like she was like, she didn't think that Adriana was gonna go there. Boo boo. Have you met Adriana? Of course she was gonna go there. So she's gagged. And at this point, Stephanie's literally in tears because she's like, Haitian mortician, like what is happening? And Andy asked Julia about those affairs that Adriana brought up, and Julia is very careful with her words. You can tell she's like very, very measured in what she's saying. And she's basically like, oh, well, that's something I told Adriana in confidence, and Martina knows. And it's just terrible that she's shaming me now because of it. Girl, how are you going to throw a rock at me, and when I throw a boulder at you, you get mad? What did you think was going to happen? So how are you going to put our personal business out there, and then when I want to, you wanted to share with the class, so I helped you share more with the class, and I'm shaming you now? Okay. I cannot with the double standard. You want to sit up here and drop this bomb without my consent, and then when I return the favor, it's, oh, you're shaming me, and I'm so upset. Girl, get the hell out my face. I cannot. And let me just say, I believe Adriana, not just because I like her more than Julia. It's because Larsa told us years ago that Julia likes Black D. So I believe it. Larsa is very much on the program now, and she's on that couch with Julia, and she's part of that little alliance for this reunion. But back when she was beefing with Julia for whatever reason, she made it clear that she knew that was Julia's preference. So thank you for that tidbit, Larsa. I did not forget that. And I remembered it as soon as Adriana told us that she was getting freaky with a Haitian man. So I'm just connecting the dots for those who don't remember. They go on break, and Andy asked Julia if they slept together more than once. Julia said they slept together once in the Hamptons, and then they fooled around in the Versace mansion when they went on Alexia's bachelorette trip. And then here goes Alexia. She's like, oh, I can see how that happened. Like, that's hot. Like, yeah, that's really hot. And I'm like, is it? It's Julia. She probably smells like goats and dogs, but okay. Andy asked if she had an affair with the Haitian mortician, and then Julia says TBD. Girl, bye. So that's a yes. Thank you for confirming. And Martina needs to leave your trifling behind, because clearly you have a pattern of this. And Adriana said this before they went on break. Adriana was like, yeah, you have a pattern of lying and cheating. You're a liar and a cheater. So don't like come at me trying to, basically anything you say to me is just BS, because you're a liar and a cheater. So you can't be believed at this point anyway. So anyways, back to being backstage. Yeah, like we see both sides of the conversation. We see Lisa talking to Adriana. We see Alexia and I think it might have been just Alexia. It might have been someone else, but we see Alexia talking to Julia, and they're both like trying to get details. And they're like, well, what did you do? Oh, Kiki was with Alexia. Kiki and Alexia were talking to Julia, and then Lisa was talking to Adriana. And they're like, both sides are like asking details, and they're like, oh, well, did you do this? And did you do this? And did you do this? And like, at any other point, I'm here for the conversation and I'm here for the details. I just don't want to picture Julia doing that, because Julia grosses me out, and she and Martina look like they stink, in my opinion. Just saying. So I'm like, well, but the girls must have been getting turned on by these details. I don't know. Also backstage, Larsa's talking to Stephanie, and Larsa tells Stephanie, "Oh, I think Adriana's making it up." And Stephanie was like, "Nah, I got to go against you, sis, because we all know Julia's a nympho." I was like, "What?" But clearly, all these indiscretions, and that's just, I'm sure a piece of the puzzle. I'm sure there are more. Um, and then Larsa backtracks because first Larsa says she doesn't believe it, but then she says, "Well, she was in a bad place in her marriage, and when you're in a bad place, you stumble and fall." Which one is it, Larsa? Adriana's a liar, or Julia is the victim and stumbled and fell 8 times with all these people? Girl, shut up. So Stephanie was like, "Well, I gotta say, she's in a great place now with Martina, and she's still running around kissing everybody. So sorry, I gotta go against you on this." I'm like, "Thank you, Stephanie. Somebody with sense. Somebody with sense." Because I can't with it ruins the show when people are too blind to their when they're too beholden to their alliance. Like, of course you're gonna have a natural inclination to side with your friend, or protect your friend or what have you. But these people that go in going so hard, whether it's right or wrong for a friend or an alliance, it ruins the show. Like, be real and have a real conversation, because you end up looking crazy when you are just like spewing incorrect things. So I'm glad Stephanie was like, "Nah, girl, like I gotta go against you. Like, it something in the milk ain't clean." So thank you, Stephanie. So back on stage, Andy um, tries to clarify, what exactly happened. Did they or didn't they? And Adriana says they did kiss, but they didn't do anything else. It was some heavy petting, but nothing more explicit than that. So then he asks again, what is Julia's motivation for bringing this up now? And Julia changes her story, and she basically says, that when we hooked up in the Hamptons, Adriana wanted me to leave Martina for her, and Adriana said that it'd be a good storyline if I did that, and it'd be just something really talked about. And I just need to know, was our friendship real? Was that real, or was it just a storyline? I'm like, I'm sorry, wasn't she blackmailing you and muzzling you and controlling your friendships and just ruining your life before you guys took a break? No, you don't remember saying that? Okay, now it's a storyline, and she wanted girl, what? Oh my god. Okay. So that's the second version of why she brought it up. And Adriana brings up that Julia also made a pass at her this season when they went to Spain. Liar, Julia denies it, so whatever. Andy points out that Adriana was actually hopeful in the beginning of the reunion that they could reconcile. She wanted to be friends again. She wanted to work things out. And then Julia is like, "Oh, well, it's not like I hate her. Like, I miss her. I miss her." And I'm like, well, she sounded like a terrible person. You said she was pretty much abusing you behind the scenes and muzzling you and blackmailing you and holding information over your head and was threatening to ruin your life and your marriage, but you miss her? Okay. Sure, Julia. And Julia's like, "Oh, well, I do miss her. I was crying earlier." So then production shows Julia crying in her glam chair in the beginning of part 1 of the reunion. And I'm like, I'm sorry. She wasn't crying over Adriana. She was crying over the fact that we, the viewers, hate her. But sure, production, go off, show her her little victim tears to try to spin the narrative that, yes, she does feel for Adriana. Okay. Julia asked Adriana, was our friendship real? Was it real? And Adriana's like, "Yeah, girl, like you broke my heart. Like, I actually have something for you." So then, our resident stunt queen gets up and brings over a gift to Julia, and it's basically like a fake heart in a box. It was very Once Upon a Time. Y'all remember that show? But anyway, it was like a fake heart in a box. And she's like, you ripped my heart out after our fight. I didn't eat or sleep for 2 days. I'm like, okay, girl, sit down. And if you're going to be getting up and down, make sure the back of your dress fastens correctly, because I don't know what was going on in the back of her dress. She had like a corset or something that was sticking out. I don't know. It looked a mess. Adriana, if you plan on doing all this up and down and all these stunts and shows, please make sure the back of your dress looks good. Okay. Anyway, so she did that. She always have to have like a moment with a prop. Fine. So then, that package is pretty much done. So then Andy starts going through, touching base with the rest of the ladies. So he goes on Kiki's package, and she's still working on her relationship with her dad. I'm like, girl, okay. I'm still working on forgiving him. Kiki realizes she has daddy issues, and so she's kind of taking a pause from, um, going to getting too serious with men. She's been celibate for a while. Um, they talked about, as a group, the burden of helping the rest of your family when you are an immigrant or first generation. And so, they just touched on that. And then, also touched on the fact that Kiki's going to be meeting one of Marisol's friends, that Marisol wants to hook her up with. And so, kind of like more to come on that, and we'll see what comes out of that. So for Stephanie's package was really annoying because, and this is how there wasn't a lot going on with this show. It wasn't solely on Stephanie. It was very much like he tried to weave in, Alexia as well. So he, like, every time he would bring up something about Stephanie, he's like, and Alexia, what do you think about it? And he, like, it was almost like a double package, because most of her because most of what was like interesting about her was her like ongoing feud with Alexia. It was annoying. I didn't like it. But pretty much, they talk about tension with Alexia. I'm not going to go back and forth in the details, but just kind of highlighted that. Adriana feels that Alexia was jealous. Guerdy agrees that Alexia was intimidated by Stephanie's just like wealth and her beauty, and she's married, and she's just all the things that Dr. Nicole also is, and that Alexia is not. And obviously, Alexia disagrees with that. And then when asked, was was Stephanie dangling her plane? Stephanie, likens her talking about her plane to show and tell, and I grew up liking show and tell, and that's like my version of show and tell. And I'm like, no, that didn't hit. So she's like talking about, it's like show and tell. Like I said, throughout the segment, Andy kept asking Alexia, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And I'm like, okay, I guess this is a dual package or something, to just try to make it, you're trying to make those first seats happen for them. And the fact is that neither of them had anything that powerful going on. And so it's like literally a dual package with the both of them. So you're like really trying to make these first chairs happen for them, but whatever. So after they're talking about the plane, Kiki jumps in and she's like, yeah, I just want to say no one here is racist, including myself. I'm not racist. No one's here is racist, but there might be a little bit of classism on the show, but no one's racist, including myself. And I'm like, girl, what? Like, this is the second time that Kiki has brought up being racist. The first time was in part 1 when they were talking about the water toss, and Guerdy mentioned that she didn't like Kiki pulling Guerdy away. Like, you're pulling the person who got assaulted away rather than the antagonizer. And Guerdy had mentioned, like, by doing that, it looks like you're holding me back as if I'm the angry Black woman, and it doesn't look right because I was the one, attacked or assaulted. And Kiki said, I guess she got a lot of like backlash that she's racist. And I'm like, girl, racist is not the word, because you're a Black woman. So your interaction with Guerdy, was another Black woman, was not anything about being racist. I personally didn't see anything like that. My my response to how Kiki has been throwing her under the bus and how she acted with the water toss is more so like, where's the solidarity? There was no solidarity. There was no like, Guerdy literally just had no one. And when you think you could look towards the other Haitian woman in the room, who's your friend, it wasn't a stranger, who to just speak up a little bit and speak up on your behalf and like really make a firm stance and be there for her, she didn't do it. So in my eyes, I'm like, dang, she failed her sister. She failed someone who she just in the time of need, you failed her. It wasn't about, oh, she's racist. Like, that doesn't even make sense. That's stupid. I didn't see anyone who said that. I don't know why anyone would say that. So it was weird that Kiki was like saying that. And then obviously the racism thing came up later in the season. They'll probably talk about it in part 3 with the ratchet and, whether or not Kiki called Adriana racist. So I don't know. It was weird, but she mentioned that race. She mentioned racism in part 1 with the water toss, and then in part 2, it was like when Stephanie was talking about the plane, she again brings up racism. Like, no one's racist, but there's a little bit of classism because of like who has a plane, who doesn't, who's gonna dangle the plane, who won't, whatever. And I'm like, girl, that didn't. You probably just should have sat there and looked pretty. So in the end of this Alexia Stephanie package, they're basically cool. Like, Alexia acknowledges like they're probably more alike than they're not alike. Stephanie says, I just need to like change the way I speak. And like, that's like her ongoing narrative. And I'm like, girl, get a new line. And honestly, if you feel the need that you need to change yourself so much to be around these people, then maybe you shouldn't be around them, because like, yeah, you shouldn't walk around and be like a complete dick, but like, I didn't get that energy from Stephanie. So it's like, if they can't accept you for you, then maybe you need to just find a new friend group, because she has said this 8 times already. I just need to change the way I talk. I'm just so direct and people are sensitive and da da da. And it's like, I don't get that from her. You're not like terribly brash, and you're not making people cry every episode. Like, no, you have an opinion, and Lord knows the rest of these women have an opinion. So like, you are fine the way you are. Stop like trying to dim yourself down to be like accepted by these weirdos, Anyway, so they're basically in a good place. And they say that, they haven't hung out, but they have been texting and talking on the phone, and they're cool. Andy says, I wish that Guerdy and Julia took a page out of your book, out of Stephanie and Alexia's book. And Guerdy was like, well, I didn't have the opportunity. Like, this was a one-sided beef. Julia never reached out to me to reconcile. So, this is what it is. Fine. So then Andy moves on to Larsa. He asks her about her new boyfriend. Who cares? Then he asked, coming from a viewer, like, was it really that deep that Lisa didn't unfollow Marcus right away? And Larsa said, yes, because I was very close with Lisa, and Marcus was doing some crazy stuff in public, against me. And it's the first person who I had around my kids, and we were living together. And so, yeah, it was that deep. And at one point she's getting emotional and she's trying to hold back tears. And then Andy asked Lisa, what did you mean by, the whole world's going to know who you are. The whole world knows who you are. And Lisa is a humming, like, she's beating around the bush. And basically she was like, yeah, there's just things out there. And, even if you ask GPT and, some people might say, and I don't think this, but some others may say, and I'm like, girl, the conclusion is like, are you saying that she's a gold digger, that the perception is she's a gold digger? And, and Larsa obviously refutes it. She says, no, I've done this business. I've done that. I'm a mom, blah, 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 fine. They asked ChatGPT, like, what are people saying about her? And it gives like a very like balanced like review on Larsa. It wasn't that bad at all. Andy asked Larsa why she actually broke up with Marcus. Like, was it cheating? And Larsa says, I wish it was only cheating. There was so much more involved. She doesn't really give details, but like I said, she was upset talking about him before. And they end on more of Lisa versus Larsa, basically on the Milan trip, when Lisa was saying that her dad was in the hospital and not doing well, and Lisa was like, well, you shouldn't even be in Milan, like, you should be with him, like, what are you doing? And so Andy asked Lisa, like, did Larsa have a point? Like, was she right in saying that? And then we end on Lisa saying, I need an effing tissue, like, I'm getting emotional. And that was it. So we'll dive into a little bit more of the Larsa versus Lisa in part 3. And we'll see what else we talk about. Oh, like I said, we'll talk about the ratchet comment. That was it. There's really not too much else to talk about this season. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on part 1 and 2. For part 2, what was your favorite part, and tell me why it was the Haitian mortician. Let me know your thoughts below. Please check out some of my other videos. And again, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Mwah. Bye.